Welcome to Access Your Leadership, where we share inspiring career stories and talk about ways you can level up your own leadership potential. I'm your host and coach, Hakim and Rob, and today I'm here with Rob Cressy. Rob is an AI and self-development coach, entrepreneur, podcast host, speaker, and the co-founder of the Unlimited Coach community. Rob is also a good buddy of mine, and Rob is the guy who is responsible for me launching this podcast a year ago. So it was only fitting that we had this 1-year anniversary podcast be with me and my brother Rob. And if you listen to the most previous episode, it was called Creation Vacation, which was with the Rob Cressy, which we did a couple weeks ago. So this is perfect. It just piggybacks on the other episode. And now I'm here with Rob to celebrate this 1-year anniversary of my podcast. Rob, great to have you, man.
Hakim, super excited to be here and super proud of you in this journey and all you're doing as a leader, as a creator, and as a coach. I'm just so happy and proud of you.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that, man. It's been a fun journey. I mean, just think, like, last October, we were working on launching a podcast, which we did in 4 weeks. So it was October 20th, 2023. And then that was live and out there in the world. And then less than a month after that, we were in Santa Monica together in person, hanging out in Santa Monica, doing some amazing things with some amazing people. And then sort of like, the rest is history. Then we just didn't stop talking. We just kept the conversation going, and we've had in-person creations, and we catch up every day. It's been pretty great.
It is the hottest start to a relationship likely of my entire life, to go from not knowing someone to 1 year later being like, you know more about me than almost any other human in the world, and the depth in which we were able to create, like, at the speed of lightning, is a testament to who you are and who both of us are in our willingness and ability to co-create together and each other.
Amen. And despite how hot and heavy it started, I appreciate the fact that neither of us is too clingy.
No,
it's all love. It's all love.
Candor is one of my core values, so that the clinginess is not going to be part of this.
Yeah. Well, listen, I have no idea where this conversation is going to go today, which is the beauty of it. But I just knew that, given the timing and given the anniversary, that I wanted this to be a conversation that you and I had. And I start every episode with a leadership win. So I want to keep that sort of true to form and give you an opportunity to share a leadership win of self or of others that's sort of resonating with you.
I'm going to give the high level and specific. The high level leadership win for me right now, leading the Unlimited Coach community, is the success of each individual community member and the light bulb moments that they have, because I'm very impact driven. I have a goal of helping 10 million people. So when I see someone or they speak, the light bulb moment, how I'm doing what I'm meant to do, or, oh my God, I did not think that this was possible. And hearing it not just once or twice, but a consistent narrative, to me, that is the absolute win. And the specific win is you, Hakim, because there are so many different wins that I can point to. One being this podcast, because I knew what you were like at zero. I knew the fears, the judgments, the self-limiting beliefs. I've seen you put in the reps. I've seen your mindset and your maturation around being a brand builder. And then most recently, and for me, this is the win of all wins that I want to inject into every other person who touches our community, is the way that you have leaned into the video side of things. Because I know it was a very big challenge for you in terms of the narrative story, the value, the impact, the authenticity, the uncomfortableness of not having done this before, coming off the heels of our creation vacation. And as I said, candor is one of my core values. So when we're sitting there in the car and I was like, Hakim, this is what I would do if I were you. Tomorrow morning, I would wake up and the first thing that I would do is I would record a video. And then I would record a video every single day for the next 21 days. And in the process of doing that, you will totally recreate who you are and it'll change your life forever. And the very next morning, I woke up and you're like, Rob, I'm going to go shoot my video. And ever since then, and it's been probably, I think it's been 2 weeks since that moment, I've continued to see you authentically shine on video. And the gap between 0 and 1 on creating your own videos for anybody is massive. And you can speak to this because what you feel and you think for where you're not at and how scary being on video can feel versus the effortless authenticity that I see you shining from in the way you're like, hey man, Rob, people are like hitting me up being like, I love watching your videos and stuff. To me, I'm like, he got it. He sees the light. And I want others to see the light. So now, as a leader, I'm going to shine my light on you as the example of the light for everybody else, because they're always going to hear from Rob. But I want to be like, hey, everybody, Hakim did the work. He's doing the thing that you're all afraid to do. And Hakim, how about you share what it's like for everybody else now that you're doing this? So for me, that's my leadership win.
Oh man, I appreciate that very much. And I appreciate you acknowledging that and seeing that and being along for that journey, because as I talk about in a lot of these episodes, and anyone who tunes in regularly knows, and this is about, us putting in the work. And the work varies from person to person, obviously, but for me, I felt myself, and I shared this with you. I was on a call with another group of really powerful king coaches that I call my kings, and we were part of a men's group for a long time. Then we ended up breaking off and doing our own little thing where we meet regularly. And I remember us having this conversation where we said, assuming that everyone in this room knows you inside and out, what is the one thing that would completely freak you out for them to ask you to do? And we all just sort of like paused and went quiet for a minute. And then I realized the thing that came up for me immediately was being more visible, being out on stages, doing videos, things like that. And that didn't scare me. It sort of interested me. I was curious to find out what that was all about. And as I shared with you when we were on our creation vacation, and I'm not afraid to share here, there was a lot of stories that came up for me around, am I going to impress? Am I going to disappoint? Am I going to show up in the sophisticated, polished, professional way that I want to be? All these expectations. And what I think was really powerful, and you and I have sort of shared this, and we've shared this with others in our community who are of like mind. And for anyone listening, listen to what I say here, in that, like, I've been really anchoring into what is alive for me. Like, what is alive in me that compels me to want to share that with one person, 100 people, 1 million people? Doesn't matter, because really, ultimately, it's about sharing what's alive in me. And I think that has created this feeling of light, easy fun, where all of the expectations, all of the assumptions, all the judgments can just kind of fall away.
Yeah. And you know what you're actually sharing? It's not words. It's not a specific topic. It's not a formulaic hook, 1, 2, 3 bullet points, CTA. Yeah, that can be in there by design. You're sharing your energy. That boom, there's a Keem, boom, there's Keem, boom, there's a Keem, where it's like, it doesn't even matter what you say. And that's actually the next level of all of this, of the mastery of the video, which I've had to excavate on my own due to my own scarcity mindset, or not enoughness, or lack of why are the results not happening soon enough? What am I not saying or doing or being on video that is creating this, as opposed to, hey, what if it didn't even matter what you said, that people are just there because of your energy? And if you came from that place, you're like, oh, so you're just saying all I get to do is shine my light whenever it feels real and alive for me. And it's like, yeah. And that can create everything you want in your life. Yeah. Are you open to that perspective? Yeah, that sounds kind of fun and freeing. How about I try it? And then you do it and you're like, wow, that only took me like 1 minute and 27 seconds. And people are like, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. And the fact that it resonates, I think, and when I say resonates, I don't mean likes and comments and actual engagement, but for people to say, like, I saw that video, I really appreciated that. Or I sent a message the other day to somebody and they're like, exactly what I needed today. I didn't send that because I was thinking, ooh, this individual needs this today. I'm sending it because it was alive in me. And what happened? It was alive in somebody else in a very different way. And what I shared sort of energetically resonated with them. And I think that that's something that's really shown up for me this past year in terms of how I do these podcast episodes. I mean, I have had, and I'm happy to say, a lot of that comes from the way that you and I talked about what this podcast was for me. and why I was doing this and how I would be doing it. I mean, for me, I was having such powerful, beautiful conversations with people so regularly, whether they were connection calls or strategic partnership calls or potential client calls, that I was thinking, God, I wish that was recorded. I wish someone could have, been a fly on the wall for that conversation. I was like, wait a minute, Rob, can't someone just like tune in and listen to this conversation? Can't I record this? Can't I create this as a podcast? And you're like, yeah, here are the steps. And in 4 sessions, boom, we had a podcast launched. It was just so amazing because now I get to really like fine tune this approach and dial in what I get and I'm able to also give in these podcast episodes with every guest that I have. It's just it feels like a gift in a lot of ways.
So I'm going to speak something into existence for you that I see, that I don't even know if you see, but I know it's inevitable that it's going to happen, is that you are going to be teaching people how to speak on video, because you already are the number one transformational leadership coach in the world. So you're already about this life. And now you are living the experience. You're getting in the reps of not just the podcast. So you've seen the zero to man. If I could just have a platform to share my conversations, to, wow, I can now just pop open on video, to, wow, Hakim and friends, I can also live stream or create webinars and bring people together. It is inevitable that the incredibly talented, amazing people listening or watching right now would be like, hey, Hakim, can you show me how you did that? And you're going to go, huh, do they know that I didn't know what I was doing a year ago?
Sure.
Irrelevant, because we all started at zero. And that's one of the self-limiting beliefs. So the reason that I see this for you is because you are such an energy person. So you have the ability to say, all right, number one, energy. Number two, impact. Number three, leadership, self-leadership. Hey, leaders, one of our roles is to be there for others when they are not there for themselves, or to be champions for other people. Therefore, I will show you how I've been doing what I've been doing, and I don't see you stopping this. So 1 year turns into 2 years, turns into, wow, somebody reaching out saying, hey, Hakim, can you show me how you're doing what you're doing? And you're going to go, wow, new level of Hakim.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I appreciate that too, because I like speaking that into existence and I like the idea of that. And the beautiful part is that you can swap video for whatever. I mean, it doesn't have to be video per se, but it's about sort of showing up. And where are you not showing up? For me, when I finish my day and I put my head on the pillow and I say my sort of like day end mantra, I'm thankful for my beautiful, healthy boys and my loving, supportive wife. And I think about my day, I feel at peace. I feel like I showed up today. I feel like I did what I wanted to do with who I had access to in the day. And that is very fulfilling and very satisfying. And I think that there are a lot of people, I mean, I speak to people all day, every day, who don't have the space or create the space or allow themselves to enjoy the space or whatever it is, to actually reflect on where they're not showing up. Where did I hold back? Where did I play small today? And the podcasting for me, and the reason why I'm just coming back to that is because of this anniversary episode, is a place where I felt like there was a real opportunity. There was real possibility there for me to get out of my, I won't even say comfort zone, but, something that was unfamiliar to me. Because as you know, I've played music on stages. I've played for hundreds and hundreds of people. I had a regular gig down in Key West, Florida. I've done acting. I've done stunts. So people who know me, they're like, are you kidding me? You've been up on stages. You've been on camera. You hold court when you're out with friends and you're the storyteller. Yes, in those arenas, I've developed a familiarity and a comfort around that. But this other space of quote unquote podcasting or video, I had lots of stories attached to. And once I was able to break those down, I realized, ooh, here's another area where I get to show up.
Hakim, I love this because in real time, I'm formulating the summary of what all of this about. Maybe it'll be the podcast title, maybe it won't. This is a podcast about leadership. And you know what we are talking about? Thought leadership. Our ability as leaders to share our thoughts. So here's my question for everybody. Is your thought leadership an obstacle or an opportunity? And maybe it's not just on a holistic standpoint. Maybe it's just one platform. Hey, I'm a little bit afraid to speak from stage. Maybe I'm afraid to do a podcast. Maybe I'm afraid to be on video or write a book or whatever it is. We're all good when we're working with our clients. Boom, we do this thing here. But the elevation of who we are as leaders is our ability to impact and influence more people positively. And there are so many opportunities to do that. But every leader knows that we all start at zero, both every single day and in anything that you're going to do in your life. And by design, this is how it's always going to be moving forward. It just so happens that when it comes to the world of media or thought leadership, it's like, oh, I'm not that guy. I haven't been playing music or speak from stage or have any of these skills. Guess what? Neither did any of us.
Well, it's interesting because even as you said thought leadership, my mind immediately went to people's reaction to that, or the stories that they start to immediately attach to that, which is, well, I'm not an expert in this. We didn't say expert. We said thought leader. And if you just break it down to its simplest form, like just leading a conversation with your thoughts. And I think that sort of takes the pressure and the need for it to be something specific to what's alive in you. What is the thought that you want to share that could generate another thought in somebody else, create a conversation? Even the event that I did with, like, the hangout with Hakim thing on LinkedIn earlier this week, the idea wasn't that I was coming with this incredibly innovative and provocative breakdown of what leaders ought to be and how they can use space to be better leaders. It was purely just show up and let's see what unfolds. And that was leadership even in itself, without me having to do a whole lot.
So I'm loving this because one of the things as a coach that I naturally do is I like to categorize things or try and create new little monikers around this, like obstacle or opportunity. And what I wrote down is, are you a passive observer or active participant as a leader? So it's like, hey, in our regular coaching and leading our teams and our companies, man, we're very active participants. But back to your question, Hakim, where am I being a passive observer? And what I wrote down is willing energy participant. Let's throw the term thought leader in the trash. Oh my God, I don't like that. That's so heavy. All right. Well, we've established this is actually just a transfer of energy. And it doesn't mean you have to have Rob or Hakim's energy. It just means your energy, your state of being, because we both know people. Think about our friend Jeff. Very quiet, very thoughtful. The way that he comes in is very wise. Man, you feel Jeff when he speaks. You're listening differently than when Rob's coming out like a bazooka, being like, whoa, I'm just blown away here. So now, are you a willing energy participant to share your energy with others?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that distinction, because I think even in we're talking about it in sort of like the creation context, or even in like the social presence or entrepreneur realm. But even if I think back to all of my many, many years working as like a traditional employee, W-2 employee, 9-to-5er, I think about the opportunities that I had earlier in my career, sort of middle management, how I set myself apart from the leaders above me was how actively I was participating in what leadership meant to me. And if I would think back to some of those leaders who didn't maybe excel or weren't as effective, they were just sort of the passive observer. They had the title, they were passively operating in the role, and they weren't creating the impact that I was creating, which then made a name for me and then allowed me to advance and have a very successful career because of how actively involved I was in what leadership required of me.
Hakim, when you say that, I can so easily see and feel any number of people, and we've both lived this, being someone who's about that self-leadership life and the overall energy leadership life of a company, and seeing people above them who are not about that, and the frustration of what I'll call the capped potential, to where you're like, wait a second, in a non-judgmental way, I am doing things that the leader above me is not doing. I am better than this leader. And to me, this is where the seed of entrepreneurship gets planted, because you then open your mind to the possibility of, well, what if I just did something on my own to where there was not a ceiling above me, where I can shatter the belief ceiling? And this isn't about necessarily entrepreneurship as much as it is blazing your own way and creating that path for yourself. Because for me, I went through corporate America for 10 years, every day waking up not liking what I was doing. So I know exactly what it is like to be sitting there. Granted, I was in a different capacity. You're coming in there being like, man, I'm this shining leader and I can see more opportunities. I was not that person. But hearing what you're saying right now, I know it, because Hakim, you and I both see, whether it's in the Unlimited Coach community or just in everyday life and networking, the people who want to transition from one thing to another. I'm going to transition from being under an uninspiring boss to working for a company that has a mission and a purpose that lights me up, or me stepping into the real next level of becoming an entrepreneur, going back to zero again and reopening up all those fears, judgments, self-limiting beliefs, obstacles on, can I do this? Do people have any idea that I don't have any idea what I'm doing? What am I going to do? Like all of these things here. And it excites me for anyone listening right now where this is causing any sort of reaction in your stomach. Because for me, this is a feeling I know oh so well, because I lived it for a decade, but it is also one of the most beautiful signals you can ever get in yourself, because that seed, if you keep watering it by listening to Hakim's podcast and you just start to live in that vision of possibility of like, wait a second, I'm not trapped in this. Growth Mindset 101 says we can always make things better. Wow. What if ...
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I mean, that's what ultimately propelled me into launching my own business and starting my own, practice and working with whoever I want to work with, whenever I want to work with, however I want to work with. And it's a beautiful thing. And then also for those people who are very much committed to growing their careers and being sort of on that traditional career path, I want to share a client story, and hopefully people can follow me on this. But when you said cap potential, I thought about a client of mine, and I'll leave his name out, but where in our conversations, he said, I feel like a sports car trapped in the garage. And I was like, oh, let's play with that, and he was just telling me all about it. And I didn't actually use this analogy or this metaphor the way I'm describing it right now when I was speaking to him, but we really sort of unpacked that. But as I think about it, in that example, the way that he expressed himself feeling like a sports car that was trapped in the garage, it was his boss who was holding the remote control to the garage door, if you can picture it. And he was like, why won't he just push the button? Why won't he just open the garage door for me? And if anybody has a garage door, you know that there's a little cord that hangs down from the motor. And if you pull that, guess what? It renders that remote useless. And what can you do? You can walk over to the garage door and you can open it yourself manually. And then guess what? You drive that thing right out of the garage. And in our coaching, that's exactly what he did. He took control over that and he pulled that lever and he opened that garage himself and he went blasting out of the garage into amazing new opportunities with a new company that is, loving him as an employee, loving him as a leader, giving him all kinds of opportunities to develop and grow and expand. And I see his success. This is actually the guy who said to me the other day, wow, I needed that message today. Not because he needed it, but because it was just like well-timed. That guy is thriving. Why? Because he took it upon himself to say, I'm not going to be limited by this. There are other possibilities out there for me. And if I sit here and just cross my fingers that one day my boss hits open, then I'm just going to be sitting here banging my head against the wall or the steering wheel in this metaphor until that happens. What can I do to change my circumstance? And he did. And it was a beautiful thing to watch.
Listen to the language that you used. And this is for everybody listening right now, because this is a holistic 2 statements that you said. So this isn't just about thought leadership. This is about all areas of your life. He took control over that. So often when we feel challenged, we actually feel helpless that we're not in control or the thing that we actually want more of is control and certainty and comfort. It's like we're designed to want to feel safe. So step one, he took control over that. Step two, amazing new opportunities. And think about just every single day coming from the lens of amazing new opportunities. You're like, all right, I'm waking up today. I'm in control and I can create amazing new opportunities. It doesn't mean that every single thing that I do touches gold or that nonstop, it's like, oh my God, opportunities everywhere. But it's your ability to create a lens for the way that you see the world, the story that you're telling yourself. So all of this, and this is what I love about coaching, and it's why you and I became such friends so fast. Both of those are just perspectives that cost $0 that we can all choose to adopt for ourselves. Step one, I'm in control of everything. You're like, all right, I'm open to that. I believe that because on the weekends, I totally feel in control of everything. So why would the weekend be any different than during the day? You're like, wow, that was a story I was telling myself that wasn't true. And then number two, amazing new opportunities. And you're like, wow, imagine if I just put a post-it note on my computer or in my bathroom that just said amazing new opportunities. And everywhere you went, you just saw it in all areas of your life. And you're like, whoa, what if I created it from the place that I'm in control of everything and I create amazing new opportunities all the time? What do you think would happen in your life?
Yeah, it's the difference between, living in cause and living in effect. Are things happening to you or happening for you, right? And I even want to drill down on the word control because I'm sure people are hearing this and they're hearing control and they're cringing for a minute because it's a pretty loaded word. And by control, we don't mean control over things or people. Really, what I'm talking about is what I'm all about, which is self-leadership. It's control over how I meet the day. It's the control over my perspective that I'm choosing to show up with or I'm choosing to live in. And control can be truth. Control can be your sort of your place of power. Like when you're standing in your place of power versus being powerless. Like, what is that for you? It doesn't have to be control. It can be your truth. It can be standing in your power. But when you actually get back to that, you realize, and this is what I had the conversation with the client about, was actually, what can you do right now? What in your capacity can you change? Can you shift in yourself, not in your boss, in your employer, in your office, in your commute? None of that. What can you change within yourself that has you seeing these amazing opportunities that are out there and available to you? And that's where it just sort of unlocked.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying about the loaded word of control. Let's just change it to ownership.
Yeah.
Or if we want that thing to be even lighter, let's just make a choice.
Yeah.
Right? I'm choosing that I can choose that I can do whatever I want. Because in reality, we actually can. We've just created the stories or the jobs or the people around us or the finances that say, oh, I can't. But actually, it's really just a choice. Ownership is a good one because this is self-awareness 101. When you're self-aware, you realize that you're in charge of every single aspect of your life, from your thoughts to what you eat, to do you work out, to what do I do for work, to how am I making money, all of those things. And to me, that's this is living by design versus living by default. You are owning that I am in charge of every single aspect of my life. And it's not, oh my God, that feels like such an obligation. It's like, oh my God, can you believe that we get to do whatever we want all the time? That is the best thing in the world. And the reason this is almost so contrarian for so many people is because the world is actually designed the opposite way of this.
Yeah. Well, you and I even touched on this a little bit when we were doing our creation vacation. And another triggering word for some people is a victim mindset. Are you living in that victim mindset? Are you a victim? Or are you creating yourself as the victim? And I was going to do a video, speaking of like content creation, I was going to do a video today and I'll still do it, but it was about this morning. And one of my sons, you know this, but other listeners may not. I have 7-year-old twin boys. They're identical twin boys. They share everything, including exactly how they look. And there are lots of moments where they struggle in their, sort of energies and dynamics. And one of my boys woke up very early this morning and he was a little out of sorts. So what did he start doing? He started blaming everybody for how he was feeling. Caden's doing this and you're doing this and mama's doing this. And I was just like, hey, nobody's doing this to you. Nobody's doing this to you. And when he actually like calmed himself down and heard what I was saying, he realized that it was him that was feeling this. Caden wasn't making him feel that way. I wasn't making him feel that way. He had the choice whether or not he wanted to stay in that feeling or if he wanted to shift his day in a different way and enjoy his Friday and look forward to trunk or treat that they're doing tonight at the school and, shift into that place in his mind. And you could see when he did, he was like, this is going to be a great day. And I was like, it's going to be a great day.
So, side note, I have to laugh because my son Maverick, who's about to turn 3 years old, he decided to wake up at 5:45 a.m. this morning, and I was already up doing my morning routine, and I'm about ready to go to the gym and like have this awesome morning. And of course, my son's like, "Mama, mama, mama." My wife's sleeping. He's trying to get up here. But Hakeem, here's the thing that I want to talk about with this, and it's a very nuanced, very high level, and I don't think I've ever heard this said before. Victim mindset is something that only people who have a growth mindset and self-aware are even aware of.
Mm-hmm.
That if you have a victim mindset, you're not saying, oh man, I'm slipping into victim mindset,
right.
Which is actually sort of the weird thing about this is that the only people who slip into a victim mindset are actually the people who are aware of growth mindset versus victim mindset. And we sit here and we're like, oh man, I'm slipping into a victim mindset. When people are being energy vampires, they're not sitting there at the end and being like, oh man, I was sure treating everybody like crap and I'm being down on myself. It's like, no. So that's why I say there's levels to this game. And victim mindset is actually a self-auditing tool for ourselves in the way that we can coach and lead others by bringing that awareness both for ourselves and other people in the name of better leadership. But I think it's an interesting nuance because someone would sit here and say, these guys are full of crap and they don't know what to talk about, or I don't believe any of this stuff. And they may be living in a victim mindset, but they will never see that as, I don't know if tool is the right word, of a tool in your creator tool belt, but an awareness tool of, man, when am I not being the best version of myself? Oh, I'm slipping into victim mindset. And Hakeem, you and I even talked about this in our creation vacation for how deep can I dig that dagger into you and the fears, the judgments, and the self-limiting beliefs. And victim mindset actually wasn't deep enough for you. I was like, Hakeem, you're slipping into being a victim in all of this. And it's just like, until I went a level deeper below that. But I think it's an interesting, it's almost like, wow, victim mindset could be seen as an asset for yourself strictly from an awareness standpoint of when you are being that, boom, trigger for, oh man, I am not being the best version of myself that's sharing that light, that's being that dude.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and you alluded to this earlier, which I think is what it comes down to in order to like put this into much simpler, easily digestible terms. And I will tell you, Lindsay Capp, who we both know and love and is incredibly powerful in the EI work that she does, when she and I were working on this, we were really sort of getting away from this idea of like always needing to know, always needing to put a label to or understand the deep complexity of, the emotional state, and actually just sort of like settle on the idea of just notice. And you said this earlier, if I'm saying this to you and you're noticing a reaction in your body, physical or emotional or mental, energetically, whatever it might be, if throughout the day you can notice your reaction to something like that, maybe not in real time, but later on in the day, allow yourself to then like reflect on that. I wonder why I felt that way in that moment. Wow, my chest got really tight when I was having that conversation with that individual. What was going on there for me? And this is what I encourage people to do all the time. And I think this is a big takeaway, even as we talk about what it took for me to put myself in a position to have a conversation with you to launch a podcast. Every time I thought about it, my hands got a little sweaty. And I was like, but I wouldn't even know where to begin. How would I get that onto the necessary platforms? And what would an intro and an outro look like? And when I think about it now, it was so like, it was like smoke and mirrors, you know? But when I actually sat down, slowed things down and noticed what was coming up for me, I was like, oh, there's some genuine like fears and some discomfort and a story here. Are those true? Can I explain those to myself? Can I work through those in order to get to this next place? And then I did, obviously.
Yeah, what I wrote down just right now was I was so caught up in a story that wasn't serving me.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't willing to move forward, or I am willing to move forward. That I saw a thing right before this on Twitter from Ravens coach John Harbaugh that said, failure is only if you're not willing to get up off the ground and you quit. That is the only time that you fail. When you say, I am done, you get up from that thing, boom, you have not failed. So in this instance, I was so caught up in a story that wasn't serving me. Are you willing to move forward? Boom, we get up off the ground. Or are you going to sit there at zero? Because for me, and this is what I am so passionate about, is that so many people right now have so much good, love, energy, fire, leadership, things they can share with the world, and they're not giving it to the world. They're just sitting there at zero, allowing the story of why not, I can't, I haven't, I don't know how to stop them from creating the thing that can completely change their life, their family's life, and other people's lives. And Hakim, from where I sit, and I know you're the same way, part of being a coach, by no means are we perfect. We're the opposite of this. We've gone through all of this stuff and we've done all the work and we have such a level of awareness. And the reason I can be so confident in so many of these things is because I see what you don't see. I both see your unlimited potential, and when you're like, oh my God, I don't know how in the world it's going to go on all these different platforms. And I sit here and I think to myself, it takes 1 minute and 19 seconds for Hakim to go, boop, 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 push 4 buttons. And you're like, wait a second, what? You're telling me it took me 3 years to have a conversation with you, and the answer was 1 minute and 27 seconds. And you're like, oh my God. So then you create this awareness for yourself where you say, all right, well, yeah, I might be playing at a bigger level right now, but I remember Rob did this thing with me. And it only took 1 minute and 27 seconds, and it saved me 3 years off my journey. You're like, well, what if I just almost assume moving forward? So the word fear is such a big one in all that we do. And there's some quotes that I love. One of them was, the dream has to be bigger than the fear. And that's the thing, is that if you have this dream inside of you, whether you're in a job, corporate right now, and you want to move up, or you want to be an entrepreneur or a coach or a leader, is the dream bigger than the fear? Let's anchor in that positive story about what's possible. Once again, active participant, passive observer. Let's be that active participant, bring that vision to life. Be it, talk to people like Hakim and myself. Man, it excites me, because this is why you and I do what we do. Because the second, and you said these words, the second someone gives themselves this gift of possibility, of conversation, of creation, of vision, their entire life changes.
Yeah. Yeah. I was at an event last night, and it was a deeply emotional event for a really beautiful cause, the Sebastian Strong Foundation. I'm actually going to have the guy on the podcast in a couple of weeks. But he said something about this topic, and this is true for a lot of things that we talk about that resonate, is this is something that you can't unhear. You know, like once you hear this, you are forever changed. And I don't mean transformed overnight or in a 30-minute podcast, but you will start to hear things differently. You'll start to notice things differently. And you segued really nicely at the end there, and we'll wrap it up with this. But I've shared this with you before, and I've shared this with others. But if you haven't heard this, the acronym for fear, false expectations appearing real. And if you can think about fear in that way, false expectations appearing real, you realize that this is just a story that we've created in our minds, probably to keep ourselves safe at one point in time. And now it's just a matter of whether or not we want to give weight and value to that fear, or if we want to just sort of recognize it as that, smile at it, and let it just sort of fade away.
Hakim, we're going to end this thing on a big old smile. And here's how. Number one, here's the second quote that I love about fear. And I believe this one came from Jamie Foxx. He was on the Tim Ferriss podcast. He goes, you know what's on the other side of fear? Nothing. I heard that and I was like, oh my God, that is so good. So It is October 18th right now when we are recording this. And I'm a believer in starting the next year when I feel inspired. Usually for me, it's the end of September or early October. So I'm already in 2025. And I just created my word of the year, and it came from our creation vacation. And what is that word? And this is the beautiful bow to this entire conversation: fearless. Fearless is the energy for how I am showing up today, tomorrow, all of 2025 until October 18th, 2025, when I'm going to create a brand new word for this. So my encouragement for everyone is to be fearless. Maybe give yourself the gift of 10 minutes and write down, what does being fearless mean and look like in your life? If you did not audit yourself whatsoever, no governors at all, you just said, I'm the best version of myself. What does fearless look like in all areas of my life? And you write that down. You've got that meaning. You've got that consistency right there. Man, that is someone, put it this way, Hakim, if someone does that single act, 10 minutes, writing down what fearless means to them, I guarantee you that person will be successful, and I would want to hire them.
Yeah. Well, you may have just answered my last question to wrap the podcast up, which is, what's a skill or attribute of leadership that listeners who want to become better leaders ought to focus on?
No brainer of the century. And I can say this with my eyes closed because both of us live this. Self-leadership. It is the one of one fundamental to this. And self-leadership starts with step one, self-awareness, step two, growth mindset, because a leader is self-driven to be their best. I am someone who, among other things, I lead by example. I run a podcast also like you. It's called Leadership DNA, about the various elements of leadership. But the number one thing, because we did a leadership draft, it's like, Rob, what are you drafting as the number one quality? I'm like, boom, self-awareness, because it's all about self-leadership. And what I love about this is the perfect circle bow of this, is our ability to be in control of it. Your ownership of how you show up as a leader, it is the absolute one of one.
Yeah, I love that. I'm all about self-leadership. You know that. And I have really enjoyed this time. This was a phenomenal way to start the day, and could not have been a more perfect way to celebrate this year of podcasting, thanks to the work that we did together. So thank you for being here, my friend. I appreciate you. I appreciate all the work you're doing out there. I love the community that you're doing. I want to give you a chance to just tell the audience a little bit also about the work that you're doing and where they can get in touch with you and they can learn more about you.
Yeah, 100%. And thank you for all those good vibes and keeping them received on my end. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so thankful for being here. So I'm an AI and self-development coach. I run a community and program called Unlimited Coach, which is all around creating growth faster and easier around artificial intelligence and self-development in a very human way. Because when I look forward at where would I be investing in my business, in my life, if I wanted to succeed and create everything that I wanted in my life? Number one, self-development. It's the inner work, it's the inside, the mindset, the heart set, or as I like to say, a mindset, a lifestyle, and a way of being. And then the AI side of things, I've created myself into an expert around that to help entrepreneurs, coaches, leaders leverage AI to do more with less faster. So if any of those things are of interest to you, hit me up on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram at Rob Cressy. You can email me, rob@robcressy.com. I've got a podcast built for the game, all around winning in business and life for the long haul. And check me out on YouTube, Rob Cressy.
Thanks, buddy. And I'll put all those in the show notes so people can reference those when they listen to the episode. And I can attest to what that community is, because I show up there Mondays and Thursdays, and it is full of energy. It's full of value. I walk off those calls ready to attack the day in a different way. And, that's a testament to what you and Colin have created. So congrats to you guys.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here today, buddy. I really appreciate you taking the time. I tossed this out to you in the middle of the week and said, how can we make this happen? This is just too perfect not to do on this year anniversary. So thanks for being here, buddy.
You're welcome.
And as always, I'd love to hear from you about the episode. What came up for you as you think about leveling up your leadership game? Did anything resonate with you? And please, if you enjoyed the episode, I'd encourage you to like and subscribe, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn at Hakim A. Lockdar or at lockdarcoaching.com. Thanks for tuning in. Keep being great, and we'll see you next time.